All right, next project, Johnson 40 horse. Gonna got a little tune-up, some lower unit seals, get her back in the water. Gonna need to drain the oil. There's the plug right there if we can get it to focus. Runs down there, he's got the prop off. And the first thing we gotta take off up here, the only thing we gotta take off up here, is that bolt right there for the shift rod. We have our starter off of this one to make it easier to see. If you have an electric starter, you will need to remove that to get to that. Alright, we got our 10 mil on a swivel. Doesn't exactly feel like a 10 mil, but a little loose. Let me get that out of there, take a look at it. That's what that shift rod upper bolt looks like. And then we're going to take off the 4 outer hex bolts right there. What size are those? 14?
14.
9/16, whatever you got handy. And then that one is going to come out as well in the middle. Alright, we got all 4 of the upper bolts out, 2 on each side. Brennan's going to pull the center one, and you can see he's got it resting on his knee right now because this should be free after this bolt comes out. Alright, the bolt is out, lower unit is free. And you can see we've got the motor up, give us the maximum amount of, there we go. And that's your lower unit. Most people that do this are going to have a stand for this. I have a Brennan. So he's going to go ahead and take out the 4, what are those, 7/16 11 millimeter bolts on top for the water pump housing. Then we're going to slide the water pump housing up and off the shaft. And get the
O-ring and a pin in there.
Yep, there's the keyway for the water pump impeller. And it's going to match up with a shaft right there, a keyway in the new water pump. You can pull that plate off. And then we're going to pull the bearing carrier. Alright, and a trick for getting that bearing housing out, if you got a spanner wrench, stick it in the bolt holes. Should crack it loose. And then a little prying should get it out of there. This one is coming apart very nicely. So maybe not completely standard, but kudos to the current owner. All right, we're gonna go ahead and fish the washer and the bearing out. We're going to pull it out and flip it upside down, face side down, as such. There's actually two. And the needle bearing. All right, we're going to start on the prop shaft seals. So we're going to go ahead and pull the ring off and remove the anode, which is going to be the two 5/16 bolts to the left and right. Some of these bolts get really rusty. This one is not bad at all. There's the anode. And then we're going to remove the two 3/8 bolts holding the bearing carrier in. And the clips. All right, now we're going to take our standard puller. You're going to need at least 8-inch long, 1/4 20. We went with threaded rod, cut it down to 9 inches. And I'm going to pull the carrier out. And you should be able to give it a little tug. And there it is. This one does not look too bad. A little dirty, a little crusty, but not too bad. Important to note, on ours, the needle bearing and the washer race came out on the back of the bearing carrier. So if yours does not, make sure you reach in and pull that out of the bottom. So we ended up using the slide hammer method, which is just that tool. There's the number. And threw it on the slide hammer and popped them right out of the carrier. And that is what we were looking for, nice and clean. Good surface for the sealant to stick to. Alright, now to the kit we have new water pump housing, both of the rubber fittings to the top of that, new cup, new rotor, new plate, and all associated gaskets, O-rings, and the keyway, as well as hardware, stainless steel hardware. Alright, so there's a ton of ways out there, different methods on how to get these out. We're going to show you ours. So we got this bearing pulling tool. There's a part number right from O'Reilly's there. It's about 15 bucks. And we got it on the end of a slide hammer. You can see down in there it grabs just inside the seal. And then we're just gonna almost here. And there we go. And all I do for that is stuff a rag in there, cover up that needle bearing, and we'll try to limit the contamination to it. A little bit of red scotch, Scotch Brite. Takes that old seal material right off. Looking pretty good. Alright, we got our green seal and our silver seal. The lips go away from each other, so we're going back to back. And the green is going to go to the top in your housing. So we're going to get a little bit of gasket sealant on there. We're using aviation form of gasket. Gets a little messy. We're going to take our seal driver, which is just pushing on the outer flat edges. Came out of an OTC seal driver kit. I'm going to go ahead and tap it in. Starting that. Arbor press definitely works great for this. But if you're careful, it need to work. There we go, we're just getting our green one seated. And there's the final product. We got the green seal on top, silver seal on the bottom. New O-ring installed. We're going to put a little triple guard grease on the rubber seal and on the O-ring, and that one should be good to go. Alright, we're going to put our bearing pin washers back in. We're going to flip it. We're going to slide it on the drive shaft. Drop that in. And then we'll get some of our sealant, gasket sealant in there. Dip it down a little. We're just going to do the mating surfaces. Try not to get any down in the housing. Don't get any down in the housing. But we are going to put some in all the thread holes. Make sure that stays sealed up. I'll put some bolts as well. There's some inside the drill. Get just a touch up there. That's good. We got our grease on the O-ring and the seals in here, so we're going to slide that back down. There we go. We'll get some sealant on our hardware. The trend for this is everything gets sealed. Alright, we're going to throw some sealant on the lip seal for the prop shaft bearing carrier. And get that pressed in so we can start getting this thing back together. Stop dropping the reverse gear out of it. Get a good coating on it. Now, I do not have the fancy numbered Evinrude installer tools, but I do have a ball joint press, and it's got lots of these nifty adapters. We're going to try that one too. Looking good. Brennan's going to get some triple guard grease on the seals, and the O-ring there I believe is already lubricated. We'll get that thing put back in. Alright, Brennan's wiping off the bearing, the thrust washer, thrust bearing in the bottom. We're going to get the prop shaft carrier reinstalled. We're going to take our carrier, and this is going to get a good coating of the shmoo. All right, so we're going to stick our washer, race, and bearing down to the back of our carrier so it doesn't fall off when we're installing it in the lower unit. Brennan's going to set that bearing down in the housing. We're going to get some sealant on this outer edge, and then we're going to install it. When you get down to this notch, the tab goes towards the bottom of the housing. Focus. Nothing. All right, now we got some mandatory editing canceled. All right. Should slide in pretty nice as long as you've gotten everything cleaned up on the outside of that carrier and the inside of the housing. Should slide down. Alright, so Brennan's going to go ahead and put the tabs in, locating tabs, and the hardware. You got just a little bit of the gasket sealant on the threads. Try and keep it so we can remove those next time. Alright, and then we got the washer in the anode, and that should be about it. Alright, Brennan's going to go ahead and install the anode. Put a dab of blue Loctite on each of the bolts. Alright, we're going to slide the washer on, and then the prop, and we should be good to go. There we go, we'll snug that down, get the cotter pin in, and the prop shaft is done. Alright, now we're going to install our gasket underneath our water pump. So we're going to put a little bit of sealant down, get the gasket bedded into it. Big drips on the inside. Try to put the next one up. All right, we're going to drop the gasket on the right way. All right, we're going to hit the other side. Get here. We got plenty of that down in the bolt holes. We're going to drop our plate on next. Put a dab of grease down here on the keyway goes. We don't lose that. Install our keyway. Then we're going to install our O-ring after we get a little triple guard grease on it. Alright, so we're going to put our O-ring down first, then our tab. I'm just going to give this thing a smear of grease. We're not starting anything dry. Just a real little bit to get it lubricated so that it seats in a little better in the cup. You can see the bottom has a cutout. The top is the stop. So we're going to drop that on from the top. Line up your keyway. Alright, we're going to slide the water pump housing on next with the O-ring. Get a dab of grease on that so it doesn't go anywhere. Just give it a little turn. It should fall right in there. As long as we still got our O-ring on the bottom, we should be good. O-ring still in place. And tip it down to one end. Give it a twist. There we go. Alright, we got our housing on there. I'm going to make sure that this doesn't come off on the way down. There's a small locating tab in there. We found it. Plenty of lock, thread sealing in the bolt holes. Alright, and our water pump should be done. We'll get the edges cleaned up. Ready to move on. Alright, time to pressure test. I have my old cooling system pressure tester. I snipped the end off and I just put it on the oil injection fitting for one of these. So we're going to pressure test it to 10 psi. Let it sit. Hopefully no leaks. There we go, right at 10 psi. We're going to set you down and you can watch. Alright, we got her all back together, passed the pressure test. Brennan's going to go ahead and install the lower unit. The grommet on the bottom of it. Definitely be a pain. Make sure you lube everything before it goes back together. You might need to rotate the engine a little bit to get the drive shaft to line up.
I can't now that you greased it.
No. There we go. Now we're going to make sure that all the rubber, drop it down just a hair, make sure that all the rubber seals on top of your water pump housing are still on. Ours look good.
There it goes.
There. Alright, we're locked in. We're going to get some bolts on. Hold this thing up. We'll put just a little bit of sealant on them to keep them from corroding. Alright, Brennan's going to finish up the bolts on the other side and tighten them down. We're going to go hook up the control rod. Alright, there's our control rod. And as you can see, it lines right up with where it was, as we did not move that. We're going to go ahead and put the bolt back in there. Make sure you get it in there, that everything's loose and you're not going to cross thread it. As you can see, it just moved it. And that's good. We're locked tight. Alright, we're going to fill up the lower unit with oil. Brennan's got the fitting screwed in the bottom there, and he has removed the top bolt. Can you point that out for him, Brennan?
It's right there.
That's the fill plug you remove, and we're going to pump oil in until it comes out of the top hole. And then we're going to plug it.
And it's going to take forever.
And it's going to take a little while. good view of the drain hole right up there. And the oil is going to fill up the lower unit till it comes out right there. Then we're going to plug it, pull the bottom plug, Dutch boy it, stick that drain plug back in, and we should be good to go. So much fast forwarding to do in post. It's ridiculous. Imagine the adapters boat shops have, like right off the gun. There we go.
There we go.
Now it's leaking. I'm just gonna screw that plug back in. Then we're gonna pull the pump fitting and get the drain plug in as quickly as possible. Try and retain all that oil in the system. Oh, blocking it. Nobody's gonna have any idea that you're unscrewing that, Brennan.
Oh, top.
Look at that. Couple of drops. All right, moment of truth.
Turn the key off on me.